So, topic 7 is going to be relatively short because we're going to have a discussion day coming up soon where we talk about the elaboration likelihood model. So, we're not going to cover that here in this lecture, but we will be covering it in the discussion. But basically, this is about attitudes. All right, and attitudes, let's just define it, is it's how Fazio defines it is a favorable or unfavorable evaluation towards something. And what I like about this definition is a couple things. Number one is this piece here, favorable or unfavorable. So you can have a positive attitude or a negative attitude about something. All right, so it can be positive or negative. And in addition to that, so a positive attitude would be like if you love chocolate, and a negative attitude would be like if you hate cats. Like me, I hate cats. I'm very allergic to cats. So I hate them. So therefore, I have an unfavorable attitude towards them. All right. Now, let's get to, so that's one kind of dichotomies. You can have positive or negative. Let's get to this dichotomy here, explicit or implicit. An explicit attitude is when you are confident in saying the attitude out loud or writing it down or doing something with that attitude. All right, so that's an explicit attitude where you can say it out loud, you can write it down. So, for example, if I love chocolate, I can say that. I love it. I love chocolate. There. That is my explicit attitude. It's explicit because I'm making it known to the world. Now, if I have, so there's a lot of questionnaires out there that exist where it'll be on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you love chocolate? 1 is not at all, 5 would be extremely. Well, even if I wrote the number 5, that is still me expressing my explicit attitude. All right, explicit attitude. The opposite of that is an implicit attitude. And this is an attitude that you either want to keep hidden from others, or even at times, it's an attitude that you have that you don't even know about. It's unconscious. All right, so let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm an ageist. Let's say that I have a strong dislike for old people. It's not okay for me to say that out loud. All right. So therefore, I'm motivated to hide it. And so therefore, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to write it on a questionnaire. I'm not going to write it down on a sheet of paper. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to say it. So therefore, it's not explicit. It's implicit. I'm hiding it. All right. Now, some attitudes we hide even from ourselves. All right. We'll get to that in a second. But this makes, measuring attitudes really difficult. Remember on the first exam material where we talked about the 3 parts to an experiment, one of which is measuring the dependent variable. And I said that oftentimes it is really hard to do that. It is hard to measure the dependent variable when you have to deal with face validity issues. Do you guys remember that? Face validity. Okay. Now remember, we're defining face validity. That is going to be defined as, does the measure look like it's supposed to? So let's say it's a measure of racism. Right? And let's say I'm trying to get at, do you hate black people? If that were the case, I would not give a questionnaire that says, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you hate black people? It's clear what the question's measuring, and most people are likely to lie about it. So guess what? That's where you cannot get at their explicit attitudes. All right? So that's the difference between explicit and implicit. So, and these 2 things I have underlined, they are independent of each other. So you can have explicit favorable, explicit unfavorable. You can have implicit favorable, implicit unfavorable as well. All right. Now, where do attitudes come from? Well, research has suggested that there are kind of 3 pieces to the attitude. It's called the ABCs of attitude. A stands for affective, that's here. B for behavioral, and C for cognitive. So let's go over those 3 differences here. So an affectively based attitude is all about feelings. An example of how that would look would be when we're dealing with feelings. It would be something to the effect of how, let's pick snakes. All right. Or screw snakes. Let's pick spiders. I hate spiders so much. I personally hate them. That's my attitude towards them. Where does that come from? Where does that hatred come from? Well, it comes from the ABCs here. A for affective is anything that involves an adjective So spiders are scary. Spiders are gross. Spiders are dangerous. Spiders are disgusting. They really are disgusting. So those words are all like attitude words. They're all, affective words. They're all adjectives to describe how gross a spider is to me. So whenever, if you say something like, if someone asks Uncle Chris, why do you hate spiders? Oh, it's because they're gross. They're smelly. They're disgusting. They're creepy. All of those are affective. All right, they're all adjective based. All right, B, behavior. Behaviorally, if you your behaviors can also reflect your attitude. Remember, this is kind of like self-perception theory. So if I were to see a spider walking towards me right now on the floor, and I jumped back 50 feet, and then grabbed a shoe and went to go kill it, that is a pretty strong indicator that I don't like spiders. Hence my negative attitude towards spiders. All right, let's say I loved spiders. Then what I would do is I would get a jar and I would, get a piece of paper. The spider would crawl on that. I'd put it in the jar and I'd keep it as a pet. All right. Ooh, clearly, I'm not going to do that. But if I did, that would mean I would have a positive attitude towards spiders. All right. And finally, cognitive. Cognition is completely feeling free. All right. It's void of all feelings. So if you hate spiders and someone said why, and they say, oh, well, I'm just making this number up because I don't know. If I said, 79% of spiders are poisonous, and if a spider bites you, there is a 1 out of 55 chance that you could die. That is complete cognition right there. So it's like a fact. Any fact, whether it's real or not, any fact that fits in the cognitive process. Notice how I didn't say anything about how gross they are, how disgusting they are. Notice how I didn't say anything about how they make me feel. They make me nervous and my palms get sweaty when I see a spider. That would be behavioral. Cognitive is about facts. Right? So let's pick something you have a positive attitude towards. Let's say you have a positive attitude towards Gettysburg College. If someone said, why? Behaviorally. Oh, because I go there and I take full advantage of the rec center, the servo, my professors, they're all great. So that'd be the behavior. Why do you like Gettysburg? Oh, the Gettysburg is just great. Gettysburg makes me so happy. I love it when I get to participate in events. I love having small classes. I love it, I love it, I love it. That would be affective. Why do you like Gettysburg College? Oh, 98% of people who graduate within the first 2 years after graduation end up getting a job or going to graduate school. And I want a job after I leave college. That would be cognition. All right. Now, here's the way this works. Notice how up here, remember when we said that you could have attitude could be favorable or unfavorable. It could be explicit or implicit. It can also be strong or weak. Okay, it can be strong or weak. So if all of these, so let's say all of these are pointing in the same direction. Let's say this is positive, positive, positive. That would lead to a really strong attitude because all of these three things align. All right, so you go to Gettysburg College because you love it. That's this. So let's do this. So you go to Gettysburg College because you love it. You go there. You love Gettysburg College. Let's start over. Scratch that. Here we go. Someone asks you why you go to Gettysburg College. Oh, I go to Gettysburg College because I love it. I love seeing all the students there. We all get along really well. Oh, and also there's a 98% chance that I'll get a job 2 years after graduation. And I go there because I love going to all the events. And I love going to all the events. I often seek out the professor's help. The food there is great. I love that. There you go. So we have the ABCs. All three are positive. You're going to have a really strong love for Gettysburg College. But what happens if not all of these are there? So let's say someone asks you, do you like Gettysburg College? And they say, well, you know what? I like the idea that 98% of us will go to get a job or go to grad school. Affective. I love it. I love the idea of seeing all my friends and stuff like that. Behaviorally, whenever I'm at Gettysburg College, I get really nervous because I don't feel like, I get nervous because I don't fit in all that well. So I get real sweaty. My palms get clammy whenever I'm around my roommate and around my people. Well, now this is going to be not as strong an attitude because now you have positive, positive, negative. So the bottom line here is that if all these three things align, they're all positive, they're all negative, this is going to be a really strong attitude. If you start to diverge away from having them all positive or all negative, that's when we start to see the attitude weaken. All right, and if they're all over the place, like negative, positive, negative, right, this would be an example of a weak negative attitude or a weak unfavorable attitude. All right, we don't know if it's explicit or implicit because I didn't tell you how it was measured, but these are the ways that you can describe it. All right, when we get done with this, what we're gonna the next piece of this is we're gonna go ahead and well, before we get to that, actually, let's talk about explicit versus implicit real quick. All right, sorry about that. Real quick, I had to find some things online. So I wanted to show you the difference between explicit versus implicit. All right, this is an explicit attitude measure. It's called the Attitudes Towards Violence Scale. And I want you to just look at some of these questions. Literally just pause the YouTube video and look at some of these questions and see how it's pretty face valid, which is not exactly a good thing. But you can see exactly the types of attitude questions that we're getting at. War is often necessary. Our country has the right to protect its borders forcefully. Children should be spanked for temper tantrums. The higher the score you get on this, the more violent attitudes you endorse. All right, but let me show you what an implicit. So this is pretty explicit. If you write it down or you say it, that here you go. But this is an implicit attitude. This is how we get at it. All right, so this is called the IAT. We're going to talk about this later in the prejudice section. But let me show you how the IAT, what it kind of looks like. So let's say this is, let's just pick one, the weight IAT. This is going to determine if I prefer big or small people. So what we have here is we have good words. So that's going to be right. Oh, I guess my pen's not going to work. All right. We have good words, which are right here. All right. And then we have bad words, which you see right here. And then you have kind of silhouettes of fat versus non-fat people. And what's going to happen is, and this is just going to be an example. I'm not going to score well because I'm talking while I'm doing this. But what you see is first we're going to categorize fat versus thin people. Oh, sorry, E versus I. So if I ever see a thin person, I'm hitting the I key. And if I ever see a fat silhouette, I'm hitting the E key. And you do this as quickly as you can. And this is pretty easy for us to do. If we get it wrong like that, it'll show an X and it'll say, oh, you got it wrong. What's going to happen is we're going to sort good words to bad words. And what's happening is I'm pressing you can't see it, but I'm pressing a button every time this happens to categorize it into happy or good versus bad. And if I get it wrong, it tells me. And just give me a sec to work through this. I want to show you the really cool trial. All right, here we go. So what's going to happen now, if you look at the top, you see it says bad words, fat people, good words, thin people. And so now what they're doing is they're pairing these up. They're pairing bad fat, good thin. All right, so let me show you an example of what that looks like. So this is a fat person silhouette, so we're going to move it to the left. This is a bad word, we're going to move it to the left. And what it's doing is it is getting my reaction times. All right, it is getting my reaction times to how quickly I'm doing this. And this may seem pretty simple and easy, and it should be, except for I'm talking to you, so I'm getting some answers wrong. And then what's going to happen is they're going to, things are going to start to switch. All right. Now, what we're doing here, we're measuring reaction times. For me, as a participant, all I see is we're just playing a game. We're just playing a game of sorting things. But in reality, this is getting at my implicit attitudes towards, in this case, fat people. All right. And what's going to do is eventually it's going to switch. So you pair fat words with thin people, bad words with thin people, and good words with fat people. And it's going to gauge your reaction times. Now, this is not a face valid measure. And that's good, because remember, if someone said to you, guess what? Do you hate fat people? No one's going to say, oh yeah, me, I hate fat people. There you go. No one's going to say that. And this is a way to get around that. So this is a way we assess our implicit attitudes. When we come back on our next video, we're actually going to talk about the crisis in social psychology and how it was dealt with. And that'll be it for attitudes.